everybody, it's Connie Stewart with SimplySimpleStamping.com. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. It's time for another Tuesday tip video. Hey, today we are going to create an amazing Slimline Pop Out Card. Oh my gosh, this card is so much fun. I've got easy, simple ways for you to create this card. I've got two versions to share with you. Slimline cards are so popular right now, but you know what? Anything with a little pop out is always fun, right? Well, let's head over to my stamping table and I'll show you what I'm talking about.
You know, I love slimline cards. They're nice, they're big, it's a unique fold, but you know what makes this one a wow? Check it out. We have a little pop-up going on in the center. Boy, it looks complicated, but you're at Simply Simple Stamping. I'm going to teach you the simple way to make this fantastic slimline pop-out card. Now, this card has a free download that goes along with it. You're going to want that because it's going to go over all of the measurements that you need to create this card. And what we're going to do, we're actually going to start with an 8.5 by 11 sheet of cardstock. I'm going to be using Early Espresso today. We're going to do a little cutting on this piece of cardstock. I'm going to flip the arm of my paper trimmer out, and we are going to be cutting this 8.5 by 7 inches. So I've got the 11 inches up at the top, cutting that down to 7 inches. We're going to use this to create our pop out. So I'm going to set that off to the side, but now we're ready to do our scoring. Whoops, we're not going to rotate this around. So we want that 7 inches up here at the top. All right, I'm going to put this back into my paper trimmer. We're going to do some scoring. So make sure that cutting blade is way out of your way. We can move that arm out of the way as well. Now we are going to score this at 1 3/4 and also at 3.5 inches. That's it. That was easy. All right, now that we have that, we can come in and do a little work here with this remaining piece here that we had of our Early Espresso. And with this is where we are going to die cut our diamonds. Of course, they're squares, but we're going to create diamonds with them. And to do that, I'm going to be using my Stylish Shapes dies. Now, if you have other dies, feel free to use those. And by the way, stick around to the end of the video. I got another card to share with you, and we're going to use circles. So if you have circle punches or circle dies, you can still make this card. Of course, you could always cut. You can cut a square / diamond as well. I love working with these dies, though. See this great big one? No. We're not going to use that one. We are going to use the second to the largest and the third, all right? And when you're creating this card, you're going to want 2 larger images and 1 smaller image. The reason why, you can see it doesn't tuck all the way in there, all right? So we need this center one to always be a little bit smaller. So no matter what you do, as long as you have 2 larges on the outside and a little bit smaller on the inside, you're good to go. You can see, if you have to measure anything, as long as it doesn't go beyond these sides, you're good. So these squares, they're approximately 2 1/4, 2 3/8. All right, so that's what the 2 larger ones are. And then, of course, I've just got another layer here in the center. So since we have this piece of scrap, let's cut 2 of our large squares and 1 of our smaller squares. We're going to start with base plate 1, cutting plate 2, a third cutting plate, the clear ones, and now we can bring in our cardstock, and I'm just going to line these 2 right next to each other. We're going to add a top plate, and now we can run this through the machine. Now we need 1 more of the large one, so we will put that one right there, and let's give that a die cut. Don't let your machine get too far away from you because we have a little more die cutting to do. And that is with a piece of Very Vanilla, and this is 2 by 7.5 inches. And my friends, we're going to go with, remember, we just used a large and the next smaller size. We need 2 of these, and then we're going to go down 1 more size. So you've kind of already seen this. Basically, we used 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. All right. So starting from the top, we're not using the top one. Now we're going to, just like you've seen me do, we're going to die cut 2 larges and 1 small. We'll get that last one. And friends, die cutting is done. It's time for some stamping. All right, so far we have not done anything all that difficult. Some simple scoring, some simple cutting. I'm going to be using the Cottage Rose stamp set for my card today. I thought the flowers were beautiful, and it's going to go along nicely with the designer series paper I'm using. And this is from the Abigail Rose. Guys, it's really not a lot. It is 2 1.5-inch pieces by 8 1/4. All right, use whatever side. You could even mix and match if you want. But you know what? I thought these two were awfully pretty. I'm going to go ahead and use them like this. So that kind of gives me an idea of how and what I want to stamp. So the other piece of cardstock that you should have cut, and this again is in the directions, this is a very vanilla 3 1/4 by 8 1/4. So I'm going to have you do a little stamping on that one as well. But let's start with our 2 large pieces. And I've got 2 ink pads today, Early Espresso and Crumb Cake. Let me get my sentiment stamped on here first. And do you see how I have my pieces of cardstock? I need to turn those. Remember, we're doing diamond shapes, not squares. So I want to make sure I have those set right. I can't tell you how many times I've messed that up. I'm going to stamp Feel Better Real Soon. I thought this would make a great Get Better card because it's a stand. We love anything that stands up. I'm going to set that side aside and do one more bit of stamping here on the inside. And I thought it would just be nice to say Friends Forever. Now, before I stamp this, let me show you. When the card is closed, you can't see the word Friends Forever. All right, you see how it's hidden? And that's about 1.5 inches down. You can, honestly, if you would feel more confident. In fact, how about we do this? Why don't we save that stamp for the very end? And that way we're sure we can get it right. But if you'd like to go ahead and stamp it about 1.5 inches down, again, it will be hidden that way. But we'll go ahead and do it at the end. All right, we are going to bring in our crumb cake. And now we're going to dress up some things. I've got this smaller flower here. And I'm going to stamp here just on the corners. You notice I didn't go overkill, just a little bit in there. I'm going to set that off to the side. Now let's bring in that Feel Better Real Soon. I'm going to take that same stamp and I'm just going to kind of hit the edges all around that sentiment. Again, just kind of dressing it up a little bit. Let's see. Now we're going to let's take the small one here. And there's a little collection of 3 flowers. This, again, we just want to kind of make it look pretty. We'll stamp that right there in the middle. Our last one is one of our larger ones. And this one, we're going to take that great big flower. Now, I'm only going to stamp the flower, so I don't need to go crazy with the ink. But again, keeping in mind, this is a diamond shape. I want to kind of get an idea of getting that flower right there in the center. Give that a press. Let's see what we've got. Beautiful. I'm going to get adhesive here on the back of my images. And you probably guessed what we're going to do. We're just going to layer these onto our squares. Remember, like I said, you could always cut these if you don't have the dies. Whatever works best. Remember, creativity can go an awful long way. Use what you have. That is done. Guess what? We're going to put our card together. All right, so we're going to do a little folding here. I'm going to fold my Early Espresso in half, and we're going to accordion fold it backwards. So again, there's my simple fold, right? We're going to I'm going to open this flat. I'm going to put my Very Vanilla. I'll adhere that here. And now the 2 pieces of designer series paper. It does look awfully pretty with that Early Espresso, doesn't it? So when your card is flat, that is how you're going to adhere all of your pieces.
Don't forget to head over to simplysimplestamping.com or just look down in the YouTube description for a direct link to today's post, because I've got that free download for you that goes along with today's card. So now, no need to write out those measurements. It's all there for you in that download. Measurements, supply list, photos, and of course, if you need to order any of the supplies that I used, a direct link to where you can order. I'd love to be your Stamp It Up demonstrator, friends. All right, with that, now I'm going to show you how to take all those pieces and create the pop-out.
You're going to be adding these here at the top, and this is where you can see you want your points of course, of your diamond to line up with this fold, and that's keeping it straight from side to side as well. That means we only want adhesive on this side. So that point makes it super easy. I just want to make sure I'm staying within this area. Again, lining up those points, and it looks like I've got, maybe about 3/4 to an inch here up at the top. I'm not going to press that down too hard just yet in case I need to move something around. Now we can take our other flower that we created. We're just going to move, put it here about the same space. So again, let's just put our adhesive here on this side. There's my adhesive. Lining that up. Again, just eyeball it. You really don't need to measure it. Just make sure you're good and straight. Everything looks good. All right, I'm going to give that a press. There's that part of our card. Now it's time for the pop out. All right, now when I had you cut your designer series paper, these were 1.5 by 8.25, right? Well, do you know if you were to cut this out of a 12 by 12, you're going to have a little piece left over. We're going to use that. So this little piece is a 1.5 by 3 inches. I did a little scoring on it. Every 3/4 of an inch. I scored it 3/4, 1.5, and 2.25. So you can see it's just all equal in size, okay? All size are 3/4 of an inch. Now it's time to add this here inside our card. I'm going to put adhesive on one tab. It's going to match this designer series paper, all right? So you want to make sure you're using the right color. And this piece is going to adhere to the designer series paper. So what we want to do, and I know it's going to be hard to see on camera, but there's a score line here, and of course this score line right here. I want to kind of center that up. Again, you guys have heard me say this so many times, don't press anything down. Let's just make it, just kind of tap it into place. I want to kind of make sure that looks centered before I go and adhere anything down. Guess what? I think I'm actually happy with that. So we can push that down. Oh, in fact, this brings me to another point. You could always line it up there on that score line and lay it flat. It's another way to see, are you centered? That actually might be an easier method for you. That one's down. Now we're going to put adhesive on this flap. So we'll put some here. This one you're going to fold. And I'm just going to kind of give it a little accordion fold here. And I'm going to bring my card over. Again, not pressing too hard just yet. Let's make sure everything's popping the way it should, and it is. So when I'm good with it, we can give it a press. That's our little pop-up. Do you see? It kind of blends right in. Guys, this couldn't be any easier. We are going to add this to this flap that's going to be facing you. But remember, it's just a little bit. You notice we don't need a lot of adhesive. We just need a little bit right here. So I'm just going to add a little adhesive. I'm going to just gently lay that. Do you see how the point is touching the end of that little pop out right there? I can, of course, wiggle if I need to. We'll give it a nice press. Yep, everything's good and straight. Look at that. Oh my goodness. Did you think a pop-up could be that easy? All right, remember what we talked about with adding the sentiment at the end? Like I said, you can do it anytime you want, but if you wait until the end, see how I can see right? I don't even need to keep it closed. I can see if I stamp Friends Forever right there, I am very secure that that will be hidden. So that is done. I've got one last thing I want to add to my card, and that is a little linen thread bow. I think just that little bit of thread makes such a difference. To add that, we are going to take a mini glue dot. And guys, here's what I like to do. I'm going to roll that into a little ball. Don't overwork it because we don't want it to lose its sticky. I'm going to put that right there on the point of my card, my middle diamond there, and we'll add that little linen bow. These will fit into Stampin' Up! Slimline card envelopes. So, yes, this is a card that can be mailed. It is so pretty. All right, I've got another card I want to share with you, and this one here, this one made me really happy. I used the Happiness Abounds stamp set and the Hues of Happiness designer series paper. But look at that. This time I did it with circles. instead of the squares / diamonds. You can do that as well. Again, you just want to make sure that your circle is not going to go off of your card. So it can't be any bigger than the card itself. In this one, again, because it's a circle, I could actually use all the same size. That's right. I was able to use the same size for this one. You know, it's always better to start with a larger one. You could always cut it down if you needed to. But you could see I did some stamping, some blending with my blending brushes, and of course, Stampin' Blends, my favorite. And can you see, there's my little pop-up, but it blends right in with that paper, so it's just the excess right here. Came out so beautiful, melon mambo. You notice how I did my circles off center when I showed this to my husband. He said, that's going to drive your OCD friends crazy. And I said, no, they like offset circles. I've seen you guys. You've left me comments about how much you do like things sometimes when they're offset. So there we go. And I just used my stamp set in some Memento Black, and of course did that gorgeous coloring simple card. Guys, oh my gosh, please tell me you are excited to create the Slimline Pop Out cards. Give these a try. They are going to be so much fun to make and even more fun to send.
Thank you all so much for joining me. Hey, if you like that card, I would love a thumbs up on YouTube. Thank you so much for that. And if you haven't subscribed, why not click the subscribe button? And YouTube will let you know whenever I'm back with a new video. We'd love to have you here on the channel. And hey, while you're at it, share with your crafty friends. The more, the merrier. Have a fantastic day, everybody. Can't wait to stamp with you next time. Bye-bye.